Thanks very much for your time, Ken. So I'm Michael from Performance Auto and Sound Magazine, US and Canada. Yeah. What Gymkhana video was the most fun to make and most challenging technically?
I would say the most fun to make was actually Gymkhana 5 because, you know, the fact of like actually having San Francisco to play with was just insane. It was very difficult to do. A lot of the stuff that I did in that video was really technically pretty hard. But the most technical one was really Gymkhana 4. That one because everything was so tight. You know, we were dealing with Universal Studios that only had, you know, a bunch of small areas to play in, and then I, you know, did stuff with like the forklifts that were all moving. So that was really difficult. So the, you know, the tight conditions and difficult tricks, and then on top of that, it was my first event really doing something with that new car, what we call the HFHV, and so it wasn't. We only had one day of testing for that car for Gymkhana before I actually made that video, so it was really difficult, you know, getting adapted to a brand new car, but then driving it dangerously in really tight, tough situations. So it was fun, but it was definitely like the most nerve-wracking of all those videos.
Fair to say that was the most scariest one?
Well, scary is a different question. Gymkhana 3 was probably the scariest, you know, going up and playing on that wall. You know, that when you get the car at an angle, the G-forces are just so affected that it really kind of throws everything off and makes things difficult. So I'd say Gymkhana 3, some of the stuff in Gymkhana 3 was actually the scariest.
Just how dangerous are making these videos? Can you tell us about some pretty scary moments?
Well, they're actually really not that dangerous. Actually, going the speeds that we go out in the forest rallying is much more dangerous. You know, but the thing is, what it doesn't really get across on camera is, you know, if I hit a curb like in Gymkhana 5, or I even hit a curb in Gymkhana 4, and it could just destroy the insides of the car because of all that force being transferred into the car from just a curb. You know, it's almost like hitting a brick wall and you hit a curb. So, you know, sometimes it can be quite dangerous even though it doesn't look that bad. And that's really like what Gymkhana 4 was really all about.
What was the most expensive Gymkhana video?
That I actually don't know because I don't deal with the budgets at DC. I just deal with the fun ideas, and you know, and my team manager and the creative director figures out all the budgets. So I can't really tell you. I can tell you that as far as filming goes, the Gymkhana 3 was one of the most expensive ones because it was a remote location in France, and it took a bit more time than we expected, and it was just very difficult on the team and the car.
How many Gymkhanas have you got to do this year? What's your calendar like?
Well, this year is actually one of the busiest years I've ever had because not only do I have Gymkhana videos to do and Gymkhana grid competitions in Europe, but I've got 4 different X Games, you know, the global X Games, one in Brazil, one in Spain, one in Germany, and then of course LA. I have 6 rallycross events, and then I have the whole Rally America Championship in the States, and then so far I have just one WRC event, which is Mexico. So it's really quite a busy year, but you know, I love the variety. I love doing all the different things with these amazing 4-wheel drive Fiestas. So I can't really complain. It's amazing.
How many sets of tires do you go through for a Gymkhana?
For filming one of the Gymkhana videos, we go through anywhere from 30 to 40 tires.
Were you abused by tires when you were young, and this is your revenge?
You know what? You know, I had dreams of sliding, you know, rally cars around as a kid, and so the destruction of tires is just the byproduct of me living out my childhood dreams.
Have you ever thought about drifting, perhaps entering the American Formula Drift Championship?
You know what, I actually really like drifting, but it's not something that I want to do as a competition. You know, I drive four-wheel drive turbo cars, and getting into a rear-wheel drive car and only doing drifting is entertaining to me, but not something I actually want to do as a competition.
Do you see room for any more Gymkhana superstars, perhaps a 2 or 3 car team?
Sure. I mean, the eventual goal for me really with Gymkhana is to have as many Gymkhana competitions as we can put together. I really like the competitive side of it. It's fun to actually do the videos, but at the end of the day, I'd really like to have 5 or 10 Gymkhana races every year.
What's the essential mods needed if someone wanted to get started in Gymkhana?
The essential what?
Essential modifications. What should people think about getting to start off?
Well, it all depends on what sort of car they want to get into. One of the best ways to get into it is to get a basic rear-wheel drive car. Like sort of a simple drift type car. That's the cheaper, easier way to do it. Otherwise, getting a high horsepower all-wheel drive car is what I really prefer, but it's actually quite expensive. So, I suggest starting off, with a grassroots drift type car and then moving up to an all-wheel drive car if they really like it and want to, try and reach the top level of it.
What's better than hooning? Is there anything better?
In my life, not very many things. Just don't tell my wife that. I'm just kidding. No, as far as driving a car, really for me, hooning is just, the ultimate way of having fun. I love to compete, and I'm a competitor at heart, but I love to have fun with anything and everything I do, from skateboarding, snowboarding, riding dirt bikes, all that. And that was the thing when I got into cars and racing, that the only time I ever saw the car was when I was actually competing. But I really like to go out and take the car and do more with it than only compete. So that's where the hooning came in.
Are there any interesting challenges, any dreams you have perhaps of maybe entering the Dakar Rally?
I mean, there's lots of things I would really like to do. Dakar would be interesting. The Baja 1000 would be interesting. Doing more of the WRC would be interesting. But, it's just one of those things that there's only so much time and money in this world to do, what we can do. And right now I can't actually fit enough stage rally in my life. So until I can actually do everything I want to do in my current series, then I won't be branching out.
And something about the business side of things, in the early days of DC Shoes, did you ever envisage that the brand would help you basically to hoon and travel the world and compete in rallies?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think the most shocking really thing for me is I had a cover of Transworld Snowboarding a couple years ago, and it was from jumping my car down in New Zealand, and I had a snowboarder next to me named Torsten Horgmo that ended up on that cover with me. And if you had told me 20 years ago, hey, you're going to be on the cover of a snowboard magazine, but you're going to be on it jumping a rally car, I just would have never believed you. And that's just kind of how my life's been with this career, going from DC and now, racing rally. It's just been a really amazing experience.
Just probably my last question, it's my personal question, is that in the mid-90s, Colin McRae did a lot for rallying. He brought it into lounge rooms of the general public. Do you feel, well, I'm telling you now, and you probably know that you actually have given the sport a bit of a boost as well. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm actually quite stoked that that's happened. It was never my intention. I'm just going out and doing what I truly love to do, so it's quite cool that so many people have enjoyed that exposure and enjoyed the videos and everything that I've done. So I genuinely appreciate it. And it's cool to actually take rally and everything that we do and expose it to the mainstream, just because, I've been such a big rally fan since I was a young kid. So for me to actually be the one to help expose, World Rally and Gymkhana and American Rally and Rallycross to all the fans, especially in America, that just haven't been exposed to it in the past. It's just a really cool thing for me.